The fluorescent lights of the subway car flickered above my head, casting shadows that danced across the scratched plastic seats. My feet ached in a way that went beyond physical pain. It was the deep, bone-tired exhaustion that comes from standing for 14 hours straight, carrying trays of pancakes and coffee to people who barely looked at me. The smell of grease clung to my hair, my skin, my uniform. I could taste it on my lips. I leaned my head against the cool window, watching the darkness of the tunnel rush past. It was 2:47 a.m. I knew because I checked my phone obsessively for the last 20 minutes, calculating how much sleep I could get before my next shift started at 11 a.m., 7 hours if I was lucky. 6 if I counted the time it would take to shower off the diner smell and force down some breakfast. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened window, pale skin, dark circles under my eyes, blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail that had started the day neat but had slowly disintegrated under the humidity of the kitchen. I looked every bit the struggling 28-year-old I was. My mother would have hated seeing me like this. Then again, my mother had left me a lot of things: an old apartment in Brooklyn with rent I could barely afford, a box of photographs I couldn't look at without crying, and questions I'd never get answered. The subway car jerked, and I grabbed the pole beside me to steady myself. There were only 5 other people in the car, a teenager with headphones, nodding off in the corner, a middle-aged woman clutching her purse like it contained the crown jewels, a homeless man stretched across 3 seats, and a man in a suit. The man in the suit caught my attention because he didn't belong here. Not at this hour, not on this train. His suit was expensive. I'd served enough Wall Street types at the diner to recognize Italian tailoring when I saw it. The fabric was so dark it was almost black, perfectly fitted to his broad shoulders. His shirt was crisp white, open at the collar, no tie. Even exhausted, I noticed his hands strong, elegant, with dark ink creeping up from his wrist, disappearing under his cuffs. Tattoos. Delicate script in what looked like Italian, intertwined with geometric patterns. But it was his face that made my breath catch. Sharp jawline covered in perfectly trimmed stubble. Dark hair slicked back with what had probably been gel hours ago, but was now slightly disheveled. And his eyes, even from across the car, even in the harsh fluorescent light, they were striking, amber, like whiskey held up to sunlight. He was staring at his phone, his expression unreadable, one hand in his pocket. He looked tired too, I realized. There was tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his mouth. Whatever had kept him out until nearly 3 a.m., it wasn't a good time. The train screeched to a halt at J Street, and the doors opened with a pneumatic hiss. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of metal and urban decay. The teenager stumbled out, still half asleep. The homeless man didn't move. The woman with the purse shifted nervously, eyeing the platform like she was deciding whether to make a run for it. Nobody got on. The doors started to close, and that's when I saw him. A man in a dirty hoodie slipped through the closing doors at the last second, moving with the predatory grace of someone who'd done this before. He was thin, wiry, with sunken cheeks and eyes that darted around the car, cataloging exits, counting potential victims, assessing threats. I'd grown up in New York. I knew how to make myself invisible on the subway. Eyes down, body language closed off, face blank. Don't engage. Don't make eye contact. Don't give them a reason to choose you. But I wasn't his target. The man in the hoodie moved fast, closing the distance between himself and the man in the suit in 3 long strides. I saw the flash of metal blade, short but wicked-looking, catching the fluorescent light. The woman with the purse gasped. The homeless man didn't even stir. Wallet, phone, watch, now. The words came out in a rush, aggressive, desperate. The kind of desperation that made people dangerous. The man in the suit looked up slowly, and I watched his expression change. Not fear, I'd expected fear. Everyone feels fear when a knife appears. But his face showed something else entirely. Annoyance. Like this was an inconvenience, not a threat. His amber eyes focused on the blade, then lifted to the attacker's face with an expression that made my stomach clench. "You've made a mistake," he said, and his voice was deep, controlled, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. Italian maybe, or something close to it. The attacker's hand shook, making the blade wobble. "Shut up, give me your fucking wallet or you'll what?" The man in the suit shifted his weight, and I realized he was preparing to move. To fight. Against a man with a knife, I didn't think. Thinking was for people who had the luxury of rational decision-making. I just moved. My body reacted before my brain caught up, years of working in a diner teaching me to move fast when hot coffee spilled or plates shattered. I surged forward, my canvas bag heavy with my tips, my keys, my phone, all the detritus of my life swinging hard toward the attacker's arm. The bag connected with a solid thunk and the knife went flying, skittering across the floor of the subway car. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the attacker's face turn toward me, shock and rage mixing into something ugly. I saw the woman with the purse scramble toward the opposite end of the car. I saw the man in the suit move, fast as a snake, his hand shooting out to grab the attacker by the throat. But I was already stumbling backward, my tired legs not quite coordinating with my impulsive heroism. My back hit the pole and pain shot through my spine. The subway car erupted into chaos. The attacker was choking, clawing at the hand around his throat. The man in the suit held him effortlessly, like he weighed nothing, those amber eyes cold and empty in a way that made my blood freeze. This wasn't a businessman defending himself. This was something else entirely. Something predatory and controlled and utterly terrifying. "Please," the attacker gasped, his face turning purple. The train screeched to a halt at the next station. The doors opened. The man in the suit released his grip, and the attacker collapsed to the floor, gasping. Then a foot-expensive leather shoe I noticed absurdly connected with the attacker's ribs, sending him sprawling toward the open doors. "Go," the man in the suit said, his voice flat and final. Before I changed my mind, the attacker scrambled out onto the platform on his hands and knees, disappearing into the darkness beyond the station lights. The doors started to close. The woman with the purse was already gone, vanished during the chaos. The homeless man slept on, oblivious. And I was alone in the subway car with a man who just choked someone unconscious with one hand. His head turned toward me, those amber eyes locking onto mine, and for the first time in the entire encounter, I felt genuine fear, not for what might have happened, for what might happen next. "You?" he started, taking a step toward me. I didn't let him finish. The doors were closing, but there was still a gap. I threw myself through it, my bag catching on the rubber seal before I yanked it free. I heard him shout something, a word in Italian, I thought, but I was already running, my tired legs finding energy from pure adrenaline. I ran up the stairs, taking them two at a time, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. I didn't look back. Didn't slow down until I was 3 blocks away, bent over with my hands on my knees, gasping for air that tasted like car exhaust and rotting garbage. What had I just done? I'd saved a stranger from a knife attack. Or maybe I'd saved the attacker from whatever that man would have done to him. The memory of those cold amber eyes haunted me as I straightened up, trying to orient myself. I was near Borough Hall, which meant I had a 15-minute walk to my apartment. My hands were shaking. I noticed them trembling as I dug my phone out of my bag, checking for damage. The screen was cracked, not from tonight. That had happened 2 months ago, and I couldn't afford to fix it, but it still worked. 3:02 a.m. I started walking, keeping to the well-lit streets, my pepper spray in my hand, even though I knew it wouldn't do much good if someone really wanted to hurt me. The city was never truly quiet, but at this hour it was subdued, sleeping with one eye open. My apartment building came into view, a pre-war walk-up that had seen better days. Probably around 1952. I climbed the 4 flights of stairs because the elevator had been broken for 3 weeks and the landlord kept promising to fix it soon. My legs burned with each step, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving behind the familiar exhaustion. Inside my studio apartment, I locked the door, turned the deadbolt, and slid the chain into place. Only then did I let myself collapse onto my secondhand couch, my bag falling to the floor beside me. The man's face floated in my memory. Those eyes. The tattoos creeping up from his collar and cuffs. The way he moved, controlled and deadly. The expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months, and his voice deep and cultured and dangerous. "You've made a mistake," he'd said to the attacker. But looking back, I wondered if I was the one who'd made the mistake. I should call the police, I thought. Report the attempted robbery. But what would I tell them? I'd fled the scene. I didn't know the attacker's name, didn't know the victim's name. And getting involved with police meant questions I couldn't afford to answer, questions about my mother. About how I ended up here, about things I'd spent years trying to forget. No, better to let it go. It was over. I'd never see that man again. I pulled myself off the couch and stumbled to the bathroom, turning on the shower and waiting for the water to heat up. In the mirror, I looked even worse than I had on the subway. My uniform was rumpled, stained with ketchup, and what I hoped was just coffee. My hair was a disaster. But my eyes looked different, brighter, more alive than they'd been in months. Because for just a moment, I'd been something other than a struggling waitress with too many bills and not enough hours in the day. I'd been someone who mattered. Someone who'd made a difference. Even if that difference had probably just been saving some rich asshole from losing his wallet. The water finally ran hot and I stepped under the spray, letting it wash away the grease and the fear and the strange electricity that had shot through me when those amber eyes met mine. Tomorrow I'd wake up and go back to the diner. I'd serve coffee and take orders and smile at customers who didn't see me. Life would continue exactly as it had before. That's what I told myself as I fell into bed, too tired to even set an alarm. I was wrong about all of it. The next 3 days passed in a blur of double shifts and tips that never seemed to add up to enough. The diner was busier than usual apparently. There was some construction project nearby that had brought in a crew of workers who loved their breakfast food. I smiled. I poured coffee. I pretended my feet didn't hurt and that I hadn't checked over my shoulder, approximately 400 times since the subway incident. I hadn't seen the man in the suit again. I'd half expected him to somehow find me to appear at the diner with questions or demands or I didn't know what. But there'd been nothing. The city had swallowed that night whole the way it always did with strange encounters. It was 3 a.m. on Thursday morning when I finally hung up my apron, my tips from the night shift tucked into my pocket. $243. It had been a good night. Maybe I could finally pay the electric bill that was 2 weeks overdue. "See you tomorrow, Sarah," called Marcus, the night cook, as I headed for the door. He was a sweet guy in his 50s who made the best hash browns I'd ever tasted and never asked about my personal life. "See you," I called back, pushing through the glass door into the cool night air, and froze. There was a black SUV parked directly in front of the diner. Not unusual in New York, except this SUV was pristine, not a speck of dirt on it, windows tinted so dark they looked like liquid obsidian. And leaning against it were 6 men in suits. 6. All of them were tall, broad-shouldered, and watching the diner entrance with the focused attention of people who were very good at their jobs. And their job, I was suddenly certain, was not anything legal. They all wore expensive suits in varying shades of black and charcoal. They all had the same kind of watchful stillness. And they all had tattoos. I could see them creeping up from their collars, wrapping around their wrist, decorating their hands with delicate script and geometric patterns. The one in the center was older than the others, maybe mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair slicked back and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. When his eyes locked onto me, I felt a jolt of recognition even though I'd never seen him before. He pushed off from the SUV and started walking toward me, every instinct I had screamed at me to run. To go back inside the diner, to call for help, to do anything except stand here frozen like a deer in headlights. But my legs wouldn't move. He stopped 3 feet away, maintaining a respectful distance, and I noticed his eyes were a warm brown kinder than I'd expected. When he spoke, his voice carried the musical lilt of an Italian accent. "Miss Mitchell. My name is Anthony Russo. I apologize for the late hour, but my employer would very much like to speak with you." My brain stuttered over several things at once. First, he knew my name. Second, he had an employer who wanted to see me. Third, there were 6 men in expensive suits waiting outside my workplace at 3 a.m., and this was either very bad or very, very bad. I don't know what you're talking about," I managed, and my voice came out smaller than I'd intended. "I don't know you." "No," Anthony agreed, "but 3 nights ago you saved someone's life on the subway. You protected him from a knife attack, then disappeared before he could thank you properly. The man in the suit. The amber eyes. The cold, controlled violence." "I didn't do anything," I said quickly. It was instinct." "I'm not looking for a reward this isn't about a reward, Miss Mitchell." Anthony's expression softened slightly. "My employer doesn't forget debts. You risked your life for him. The least he can do is express his gratitude in person." "I really need to get home," I said, backing toward the diner door. "I have work tomorrow, and we know your schedule." The words were gentle but stopped me cold. "We know you work double shifts 4 days a week. We know you live alone in Brooklyn, that you walk home at night because you can't afford the cab fare. We know your mother passed away 2 years ago and left you with nothing but an apartment you can barely afford and medical bills you'll be paying off for the next decade. Ice flooded my veins. They'd been watching me, investigating me, knowing things about my life that I'd never told anyone. What do you want? My voice shook now, fear overriding exhaustion. Just an hour of your time, Anthony said. Boss wants to thank you properly. You have my word you'll be back home safely before sunrise. And if I refuse? The other 5 men shifted almost imperceptibly, and I understood that refusing wasn't really an option. Not because they'd hurt me, I didn't get that vibe from Anthony, but because these weren't people you said no to. Anthony seemed to sense my calculation. You saved his life, Miss Mitchell. He doesn't forget that kind of thing. This is gratitude, not a threat. You have my word. Something in his tone made me believe him. Or maybe I was just too tired to run. Or maybe some part of me, the reckless part that had swung a bag at an armed man, wanted to see those amber eyes again. 1 hour, I said finally. Then I go home. Anthony smiled, and it transformed his severe face into something almost grandfatherly. 1 hour. Thank you, Miss Mitchell. He gestured toward the SUV, and one of the other men opened the rear door. The interior was leather and luxury, the kind of vehicle I'd only ever seen in movies. I climbed in, my worn sneakers looking absurd against the pristine floor mats. Anthony slid in beside me while 2 of the others got in front. The remaining 3 got into a second SUV I hadn't noticed parked behind the first. As we pulled away from the diner, I watched the familiar streets of Brooklyn slide past the tinted windows and wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Where are we going? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Manhattan, Anthony replied. Mr. Salvatore's residence, Salvatore. The name rolled through my mind, familiar in a way I couldn't place. I'd heard it before. Recently, maybe. Or the memory hit me like a punch. My mother, 3 years ago, her face pale and drawn from the cancer treatments that weren't working. Stay away from the Salvatores, baby, she'd said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. Promise me. If you ever hear that name, you run. I promised, not understanding, assuming it was the morphine talking. But now, sitting in a luxury SUV surrounded by armed men in expensive suits, I thought maybe my mother had known exactly what she was saying. Miss Mitchell? Anthony's voice pulled me from the memory. You look pale. Would you like some water? I'm fine, I lied, and watched the city transform around us from the working-class neighborhoods of Brooklyn into the gleaming towers of Manhattan. We crossed the bridge, and the skyline opened up before us, beautiful and terrible in its wealth. This wasn't my New York. This was the city that existed in penthouses and private clubs where people like me only existed to serve coffee in clear plates. The MFUV pulled up in front of a building that looked like it had been transplanted from Milan, all glass and steel and modern elegance. A doorman in a uniform that probably cost more than my monthly rent rushed to open the vehicle door. Miss Mitchell, he said with a slight bow, like I was someone important instead of a waitress in a stained uniform. Anthony led me through a lobby that was all marble and gold accents to an elevator with only 2 buttons. He pressed the top one. Mr. Salvatore owns the entire building, Anthony explained as the elevator rose smoothly upward. The penthouse is his private residence. Of course it was. The elevator opened directly into an apartment. No, calling it an apartment was like calling the ocean a puddle. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city spread out below us like a circuit board, lights twinkling in the pre-dawn darkness. The floors were dark hardwood, the furniture all clean lines and expensive fabrics. Art hung on the walls, actual art, the kind that belonged in museums. And standing by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights, was him. He turned as we entered, and I felt my breath catch exactly the way it had on the subway. He was wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing more of those intricate tattoos. The ink covered his forearms in elaborate patterns script in Italian. Geometric designs, what looked like a family crest. His hair was still slicked back, his jaw still sharp enough to cut glass. And those eyes locked onto mine and didn't let go. Tesoro, he said, and his deep voice with its Italian accent rolled through me like thunder. You ran away before I could thank you. My voice failed me. Standing here in his home, seeing him in the light, I realized several things at once. First, he was even more devastatingly handsome than I'd remembered. Second, the controlled violence I'd seen on the subway was still there, coiled beneath the surface of his civilized appearance. Third, I was in so far over my head I couldn't even see the surface anymore. Anthony, thank you, the man Salvatore said without taking his eyes off me. You can wait downstairs, boss. Anthony nodded and disappeared back into the elevator, leaving me alone with a man who choked someone unconscious with one hand. Would you like something to drink? Salvatore asked, moving toward a bar cart near the window. Wine? Water? Whiskey? Water, I managed. My throat felt like sandpaper. He poured from a crystal pitcher, adding ice and a slice of lemon before handing me a glass that probably cost more than my rent. Our fingers brushed as I took it, and I felt that same electric jolt I'd felt on the subway. Sit, he said, gesturing to a leather couch that looked like it had never been sat on. Please. I perched on the edge, my worn sneakers looking ridiculous against the expensive rug. He sat across from me in a matching chair, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and woody with hints of citrus. You must have questions, he said, those amber eyes studying my face like he was memorizing every detail. I have about 1,000, I admitted. Starting with, how did you find me? A slight smile curved his lips. I own half of Brooklyn, Tesoro. Finding one brave waitress was not difficult. You shouldn't have looked for me at all. I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have, no. The word was firm, absolute. No one else moved. You did. You put yourself between me and a knife without hesitation, without knowing who I was. You risked your life for a stranger. I didn't think, I said honestly. I just reacted. Exactly. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and I fought the urge to lean back. Not from fear, well, not entirely from fear. From the sheer intensity of his presence. You have the instinct to protect. To save, even when it puts you in danger. I'm a waitress, not a hero. You were a waitress 3 nights ago when you saved the head of the Salvatore family from a knife attack. His voice was soft but carried weight. Do you know what that means, Miss Mitchell? Sarah? I said automatically. And I'm starting to think it means I should have minded my own business. That smile again, slightly wider this time. Sarah, bellissima. It means you've done something no one in this city would dare to do. You've put Dante Salvatore in your debt. Dante, the name fit him perfectly. Dark and literary and dangerous. I don't want anything from you, I said, setting down the water glass before he could see how badly my hands were shaking. I just want to go home and forget this ever happened. Unfortunately, that's not possible. He stood and walked to the window, his hands in his pockets. Even from behind, he was imposing broad shoulders, narrow waist, the kind of physique that came from something more demanding than a gym membership. The man who attacked me that night? He wasn't a random thief. He was sent by enemies of my family. People who want me dead. And thanks to you, he failed. Then you should be safe now, I said. Problem solved. No, Sarah, now they know someone intervened. They'll want to know who you are, why you helped me, what connection you have to my family. Ice flooded my veins again. I don't have any connection to your family. I never even heard your name before tonight. He turned back to face me and something flickered in those amber eyes. Your mother never mentioned the Salvatores? My blood turned to ice. How do you know about my mother? I know everything about you, Tesoro, including the fact that your mother worked for my father 30 years ago, before you were born. The room tilted. I gripped the arm of the couch, fighting against the wave of dizziness. You're lying. I don't lie. He crossed the room and knelt in front of me, bringing those amber eyes level with mine. Up close, I could see flecks of gold in them, warm despite the coldness I'd seen on the subway. Your mother was Elizabeth Mitchell nee Rossi. She was cousin to my father's driver. She worked in our household for 2 years before she left to marry your father. Rossi? I whispered. My mother's maiden name. She'd never talked about her family, always deflecting my questions with practiced ease. The families have a long history, Dante said gently. A complicated one. Your mother chose to leave that world behind, and we respected her wishes. But that doesn't change the blood connection. And it doesn't change the fact that you saved my life. I didn't know, I said, my voice breaking. I swear to God, I didn't know who you were. I believe you. His hand lifted, and I thought he was going to touch my face, but it stopped mid-air, hovering near my cheek. Which makes what you did even more remarkable. You had no reason to help me, no loyalty. No obligation, you just acted. So what now? I forced myself to meet his eyes. You dragged me into whatever family drama you have going on because my mother was related to your driver 30 years ago? No, he stood and moved back to his chair, creating distance that somehow made it easier to breathe. Now I protect you, whether you want me to or not. Because the people who want me dead will come after anyone they think I value. And by saving me, Tesoro, you've become valuable to me. I don't need protection. I need to go home and get 4 hours of sleep before my next shift. You can't go back there. His voice was flat, final. Your apartment isn't secure. The diner isn't secure. Everywhere you've been for the last 3 days, my men have been watching. If they can find you, so can my enemies. You've been watching me? Anger cut through the fear. For 3 days? That's stalking. That's protection. He leaned forward. Sarah, listen to me. The Russo family doesn't play games. If they think you're connected to me, they'll take you. They'll hurt you to hurt me. I can't. His jaw tightened. I won't let that happen. You don't even know me. I know enough. Those amber eyes softened. I know you work yourself to exhaustion trying to pay off your mother's medical bills. I know you eat 1 meal a day because you can't afford more. I know you walk home at 3 a.m. through dangerous neighborhoods because cab fare would mean choosing between electricity and food. I know you're alone in the city with no family and no safety net. And I know that despite all of that, when you saw someone in danger, you didn't hesitate. Tears burned my eyes. I blinked them back furiously. Knowing my situation doesn't give you the right to control my life. You're right. He stood again, pacing like a caged animal. But I'm offering you a choice. Stay here under my protection until the threat is eliminated. Or go back to your life and hope the Russos don't find you before I can stop them. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. Yes, he agreed. It is. I wanted to scream at him. To throw my water glass at his too handsome face and storm out of his ridiculous penthouse back to my tiny, drafty apartment where at least I was in control of my own life. But I'd lived in New York long enough to recognize a losing battle. How long? I asked quietly. A few weeks. Maybe a month. However long it takes to resolve the situation with the Russos. I'll lose my job. I'll compensate you. Triple what you'd make at the diner. I'll lose my apartment. I can't afford the rent if I'm not working. I'll cover it. He said it like it was nothing. Like throwing money at my problems was as easy as breathing. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care so much? I'm nobody. I'm just some waitress who got in the way of a knife. You don't owe me this much. He crossed the room again, and this time when he knelt in front of me, he did touch my face. His hand was warm, his palm rough with calluses I hadn't expected. His thumb brushed my cheek, and I realized a tear had escaped despite my best efforts. In my world, Tesoro, loyalty is bought or beaten into people. Fear is the currency we trade in. Trust is a weakness that gets you killed. His voice was rough, raw in a way I hadn't heard before. But you gave me something freely. You risked yourself for a stranger with no expectation of reward. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? I'm not precious, I whispered. I'm tired and broke and scared. You're brave, he corrected. Brave enough to stand between a stranger and a knife. Brave enough to argue with the head of the Salvatore family in his own home. That almost smile again. And brave enough, I think, to survive a few weeks in my world. Your world sounds terrifying. It is, he agreed. But you'll be safe here. I give you my word. The word of a mob boss, I said, but there was no heat in it. Very reassuring. The word of a man who keeps his promises. His hand dropped from my face, and I immediately missed its warmth. Stay, Sarah, let me protect you. Let me repay the debt I owe. I looked around the penthouse at the luxury I'd never imagined. At the city spread out below us like a kingdom, at this dangerous, beautiful man who'd somehow turned my life upside down in the space of 3 days. My mother's voice echoed in my memory. Stay away from the Salvatores. But I was here now. In the center of their world, and running would only make me a target. 1 month, I said finally, and then I go back to my life. No arguments. 1 month, Dante agreed, standing and offering me his hand. You have my word. I took his hand, letting him pull me to my feet, and felt that electric current again stronger this time, undeniable. Welcome to the family, Tesoro, he said softly, and I wondered if I'd just made a deal with the devil. Or if maybe the devil had just saved me from something worse. The guest room Dante showed me to was bigger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, now starting to lighten with the approach of dawn. The bed was enormous, covered in what felt like Egyptian cotton sheets. There was an attached bathroom with a shower that had more jets than I knew what to do with, and a soaking tub that could probably fit 3 people. There are clothes in the closet, Dante said from the doorway, maintaining that respectful distance again. Valentina, my housekeeper, will bring anything else you need. If you're hungry, I'm fine, I interrupted, exhaustion finally winning the battle against adrenaline. I just need sleep. Of course. He started to leave, then paused. Sarah? Thank you. For giving me a chance to keep you safe. You didn't really give me a choice, I pointed out. I know, but you could have fought harder. Run away, screamed for help. Those amber eyes found mine. You didn't. Maybe I'm too tired to fight. Or maybe, he said softly, some part of you knows you can trust me. He closed the door before I could respond, leaving me alone in a bedroom that cost more than I'd earn in 5 years. I should have been terrified. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I walked to the window and watched the sun rise over Manhattan, painting the skyscrapers in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere out there, my old life was continuing without me. The diner would open for the breakfast rush. Marcus would wonder where I was. My landlord would start getting antsy about next month's rent. But here, in this impossible penthouse with a dangerous man who'd promised to protect me, I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Safe. It was probably an illusion. Probably a mistake. Probably going to end in disaster. But for just this moment, watching the city wake up below me, I let myself believe in the word of a man I barely knew. I let myself believe I might actually survive this. I woke to sunlight straining through windows I didn't recognize and panic flooding my system before memory caught up. The penthouse. Dante Salvatore. The deal I'd made in the dark hours of the morning. The clock on the nightstand read 2:47 p.m. I'd slept for nearly 11 hours. Sitting up, I realized someone had come into the room while I was sleeping. My uniform from the diner was gone, replaced by neatly folded clothes on the chair near the bed designer jeans that looked like they'd actually fit me. A soft cashmere sweater, underwear still in packages. Even shoes, simple leather flats that were somehow exactly my size. This should have creeped me out. Instead, I found myself oddly touched by the attention to detail. The bathroom yielded more surprises, expensive toiletries. Fluffy towels, a hairdryer that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I showered, washing away the last traces of the diner's grease, and dressed in the clothes that fit perfectly because of course they did. When I emerged from the bedroom, the smell of coffee led me through the penthouse to a kitchen that looked like something from a design magazine. All marble countertops and stainless steel appliances, with herbs growing in small pots on the windowsill. A woman in her 60s stood at the stove, stirring something in a copper pot. She looked up as I entered, her weathered face breaking into a warm smile. Ah, Miss Sarah, you're awake. I'm Valentina. Her accent was thick, musical. I've made you lunch. You must be starving. I don't want to be any trouble. Trouble? She laughed, gesturing me toward the kitchen island where a place had been set with actual china. Dante tells me you saved his life. Feeding you is the least I can do. Sit, I sat, and she placed a bowl in front of me, pasta and a cream sauce with what smelled like fresh basil and garlic. My stomach growled audibly. Eat, Valentina commanded, pouring coffee from a French press. You're too thin. The diner doesn't feed you enough. How did you? I know everything that happens in this house, she said with a knowing smile. Dante had his men watching you for 3 days, making sure you were safe. He doesn't do that for just anyone. I took a bite of the pasta and nearly moaned. It was incredible, rich and creamy with just the right amount of garlic. This is amazing. My grandmother's recipe. She settled onto the stool across from me, cradling her own coffee cup. I've been with the Salvatore family for 40 years. Raised Dante from when he was just a boy. He's a good man, Miss Sarah. Dangerous, yes. Violent when he needs to be. But good deep down. You don't have to sell me on him, I said around another mouthful of pasta. I'm already stuck here for a month. Not stuck, Valentina corrected gently, protected. There's a difference, is there? I met her eyes. He didn't exactly give me a choice. No, she agreed. But would you really want to go back to your apartment knowing men might be watching it? Waiting to hurt you because you helped Dante? The pasta suddenly tasted like ash. I set down my fork. Is it really that bad? The threat against me? Valentina's expression turned serious. The Russo family has been trying to take Salvatore territory for 5 years. They've killed 3 of our men, burned down 2 of our businesses, and nearly succeeded in assassinating Dante twice. Once in his car, they shot out the tires on the highway. Once in a restaurant, poisoned his food. She reached across the counter and took my hand. The fact that you interfered with their 3rd attempt? Yes, Kara. It's really that bad. Jesus, I whispered. But you're safe here, Valentina continued. This building is a fortress, armed guards on every floor. Security cameras everywhere. Dante's personal guards, Anthony, and the others you met, they're the best in the business. No one gets in without permission. So I'm in a very nice prison. You're in a home, she said firmly. My home, Dante's home. And as long as you're here, you're family. We take care of family. Before I could respond, male voices echoed from somewhere deeper in the penthouse. Valentina stood, smoothing her apron. Dante's meeting with his captains. Business. You should stay in here. But I was already standing, drawn by curiosity and something else I didn't want to name. I moved to the doorway of the kitchen, peering down the hallway toward what looked like a study. Through the partially open door, I could see Dante sitting behind a massive desk, his shirt sleeves still rolled up to reveal those intricate tattoos. 3 men sat across from him, all in suits, all watching him with expressions of deference that bordered on fear. Needs to be handled quietly, Dante was saying, his voice carrying that tone of absolute authority I'd heard on the subway. No bodies. No attention. Make it look like an accident. Yes, boss, one of the men said. What about the shipment from already taken care of? Marco handled it personally. And the girl? My breath caught. Were they talking about me? The girl's under my protection, Dante said, and his voice dropped to something cold and final. Anyone who touches her, looks at her wrong, even thinks about using her to get to me. I want to know about it immediately. Spread the word to every family in the 5 boroughs. She's off limits. Boss, with all respect, won't that just make her a bigger target? If the Russos think she's important to you, then they'll know what happens when you come after what's mine. The threat in his voice made my blood run cold. They'll serve as an example to everyone else who might get ideas. Understood, boss? Good, now get out, all of you. I have work to do. The men filed out, and I ducked back into the kitchen before they could see me. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking as I picked up my coffee cup. What's mine? He'd said. Like I was property, a possession. Kara? Valentina's hand on my shoulder made me jump. You heard? Enough, I managed. Don't be afraid, she said softly. Dante speaks like that to his men because it's the only language they understand. Power, ownership, control. But with you, he's different. Gentler. He barely knows me. He knows enough. She smiled. You'd be surprised how much that man notices. How much he cares even when he pretends not to. Before I could ask what she meant, footsteps approached the kitchen. Dante appeared in the doorway, his expression softening when he saw me. You're awake. Good, did you eat? Valentina made lunch. It was amazing. She's been trying to fat me up for 40 years, Dante said with affection in his voice. Now she has a new project. I'm not a project, I said, more sharply than I'd intended. And I'm not yours. His eyebrows rose. You heard the meeting. Hard not to when you're talking about me like I'm a piece of furniture. I was establishing your status to my captains, he said calmly. Making it clear that you're under the family's protection. That hurting you means death. By calling me yours. Yes. No apology, no explanation. Just that one word, absolute and final. I'm not yours, I repeated. I'm here because you didn't give me a choice. That doesn't make me your possession. No, he agreed and crossed the room to stand in front of me. This close, I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. But it does make you my responsibility. And in my world, Tesoro, that amounts to the same thing. Then your world is fucked up. Valentina made a choking sound. Apparently, no one talked to Dante Salvatore like that. But instead of anger, I saw amusement flicker in those amber eyes. My world is very fucked up, he agreed. Which is why I'm keeping you out of as much of it as possible. By locking me in a penthouse? By giving you safety, security, and time to rest without worrying about rent or food or medical bills. His hand lifted, and this time he did touch my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. When was the last time you slept 11 hours, Sarah? When was the last time you ate a meal you didn't have to cook yourself or steal from the diner? When was the last time someone took care of you? The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't remember. Couldn't remember the last time I'd felt rested, felt safe, felt like someone gave a damn if I lived or died. That's not fair, I whispered. No, he agreed softly. But it's true. Let me take care of you, Tesoro. Let me give you what you need. What you deserve. And what do you get out of it, I challenged. Nobody does something for nothing. Especially not in your world. His expression shifted, something raw and honest crossing his face. I get to sleep at night knowing that the brave woman who saved my life is safe. I get to repay a debt that would haunt me forever if I didn't. And maybe, he paused, his hand still cradling my face. Maybe I get to know what it's like to protect someone who actually deserves it. Your world again, I said. But the fight was draining out of me. Always violence and protection and debts. It's the only world I know. His thumb moved to my lips, tracing them with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. But you don't belong in it. You're too good. Too pure. I'm not pure, I said. I'm just broke and tired. You're beautiful, he corrected. And brave. And stubborn as hell. Is that why you're keeping me here? Because I'm beautiful? I'm keeping you here because letting you walk out that door would be like signing your death warrant. His hand dropped, and I immediately missed its warmth. But yes, Sarah, you're beautiful. Devastatingly so. And that makes this harder. Makes what harder? Keeping my distance. He stepped back, creating space between us. Remembering that you're here for protection, not. He cut himself off. Not what? My voice came out breathier than I'd intended. Not what I want, he finished quietly. You should finish your lunch. Valentina made tiramisu for dessert. He left before I could respond, disappearing back down the hallway toward his study. I stood there in the kitchen, my heart racing, my skin still tingling where he touched me, and tried to understand what the hell was happening. 3 days ago, I'd been a broke waitress with no prospects and no hope. Now I was living in a penthouse under the protection of a mob boss who looked at me like I was something precious. Kara? Valentina's voice was gentle. You should sit down. You look pale. I think I'm in trouble, I said, sinking back onto the stool. Because of the Russos? Because of him. I looked toward the hallway where Dante had disappeared. Because every time he looks at me, I forget why I should be scared. Valentina smiled, sad and knowing. That's how it starts, Kara. That's how it always starts. She set a plate of tiramisu in front of me, and I ate it mechanically, tasting nothing, my mind spinning with thoughts I didn't want to have about a man I barely knew. A dangerous man. A violent man. A man who spoke of death and territory and control like they were normal topics of conversation. But also a man who touched my face like I was made of glass, who promised to take care of me, who'd called me beautiful with a raw honesty that stole my breath. I was in so much trouble, and the worst part? I didn't want to be anywhere else. The first week passed in a strange kind of limbo. I woke when I wanted, ate Valentina's incredible cooking, and tried not to think about the diner or my apartment or the life I'd left behind. Dante was everywhere and nowhere. I'd catch glimpses of him through doorways, on phone calls in Italian, meeting with men in expensive suits, working late into the night in his study. But he never approached me, never sought me out. It was Valentina who kept me company, teaching me to make pasta from scratch and telling me stories about Dante's childhood, about how he'd taken over the family business at 25 when his father was killed, about the weight of responsibility that sat on his shoulders, about the loneliness of being feared by everyone around you. He needs someone who sees the man, not the boss, Valentina said one afternoon as we rolled out dough for ravioli. Someone who isn't afraid of him. I'm afraid of him, I admitted. Sometimes, but you still argued with him. Still called his world fucked up to his face. She laughed. I thought Anthony was going to have a heart attack. Should I not have done that? You should always be honest with Dante, Valentina said seriously. He's surrounded by people who tell him what he wants to hear. He needs truth even when it's hard. That night I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, my mind too active. I wandered out to the living room and found Dante standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the city. He didn't turn when I approached, but his shoulders tensed slightly, telling me he knew I was there. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice rough like he'd been shouting or smoking or both. "Too quiet," I said, moving to stand beside him. This close I could smell his cologne and something underneath leather and gun oil and danger. "I'm used to sirens and car alarms." "I could arrange for some noise if it would help you sleep," he offered, and I heard the smallest hint of amusement. "That's okay." I looked out at the view the city spread beneath us like a living thing pulsing with light and life. "It's beautiful from up here. Makes you forget how dirty and dangerous it is down there." "That's the point of height," Dante said. "Distance makes everything look cleaner than it is. Is that how you see your life? From a distance?" He finally turned to look at me, those amber eyes unreadable. "I see my life for exactly what it is. Blood and money and power. There's no distance that makes that clean." "Then why do it?" I asked. "Why not walk away?" "Because it's who I am. Who I was raised to be." He took a sip of whiskey. "My father was the head of this family. His father before him. It's in my blood, Sarah. I couldn't walk away even if I wanted to. Do you want to?" The question hung between us, heavy and dangerous. For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. "Sometimes," he admitted finally, "when I'm making decisions about who lives and who dies, when I'm ordering violence to protect what's mine, when I look in the mirror and see my father's eyes staring back at me." He set down his glass. "But then I remember that if I walk away, everything falls apart. The families we protect, the neighborhoods we keep safe, the order we maintain, it all crumbles without leadership. You really believe you're keeping people safe?" "I know I am." His voice was firm. "The alternative to the Salvatore family isn't peace to sorrow, it's chaos. It's the Russos taking over, and they don't have our code, our honor. They'd burn the city to the ground for profit. So you're the lesser of two evils." "I'm the devil, you know," he corrected. "And in this world, that's the best people can hope for." I should have been horrified. Should have been backing away from this man who spoke so casually about violence and control. Instead, I found myself moving closer. "What was your father like?" I asked softly. Dandy's jaw tightened. "Hard, unforgiving. He believed that love was weakness. That sentiment got you killed. He taught me to trust no one, to show no mercy, to rule through fear. But Valentina says you're different. Gentler. Valentina sees what she wants to see, but there was no heat in the words. I'm my father's son in all the ways that matter. I don't believe that." The words came out before I could stop them. "If you were really like him, you wouldn't have brought me here, wouldn't be protecting me. You'd have paid off the debt with money and forgotten about me. Maybe?" He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. "Or maybe you're my one weakness. The sentiment that's going to get me killed. I don't want to be your weakness." "Too late," he said softly. "You became that the moment you stepped between me and that knife. We stood there, inches apart, the city lights casting shadows across his face. I could see the tattoos on his neck more clearly now, words in Italian script that looked like a prayer or a promise. His jaw was rough with stubble, his lips full and sculpted. I wondered what they'd feel like against mine. The thought shocked me so much I took a step back. I should go back to bed. "Sarah," his hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. "I know this is hard, being here, being away from your life, but I need you to understand something." "What?" "I meant what I said to my captains. You're under my protection. That means no one touches you, no one threatens you. No one even looks at you wrong without answering to me." His thumb stroked the inside of my wrist, and I felt my pulse jump. "But it also means I won't touch you, won't push you, won't take advantage of the situation." "Why not?" The question was out before I could stop it. His eyes darkened. "Because you deserve better than a man who lives in blood and violence. Because you're here because I forced you to be, not because you chose it. And because," he released my wrist and stepped back, "because if I start something with you, Tesoro, I won't be able to stop. And you need to be able to walk away when this is over." "What if I don't want to walk away?" The words hung in the air between us, shocking us both. Dante's expression shifted through several emotions too quickly to track. You don't know what you're saying. Maybe not, I agreed. But I'm tired of people making decisions for me. You brought me here. You put me under your protection. You've been watching me sleep and buying me clothes and feeding me like I'm some kind of doll you're taking care of. But you don't get to decide what I feel. What do you feel? His voice was rough, dangerous. Confused, I admitted. Scared. Angry that you've turned my life upside down. I took a step toward him. But also safe. Cared for? Seen in a way I haven't been in years. Sarah, and attracted to you, I continued, my heart pounding. Terrifyingly, stupidly attracted to a man I should be running from. His hand shot out and gripped the back of my neck, not hard but possessive, pulling me close enough that I could feel his breath on my face. Don't, he growled. Don't say things like that unless you mean them. Unless you understand what you're starting. I mean them, I whispered. And I'm starting to think I don't care about the consequences. For a moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. His eyes dropped to my lips, his grip on my neck tightened fractionally, his breathing changed. Then he let go and stepped back so quickly I stumbled. Go to bed, Sarah. His voice was cold, controlled. Before I do something we'll both regret. Dante? Now. The command in his voice left no room for argument. I fled back to my bedroom, my heart racing, my body trembling with adrenaline and something else I didn't want to name. I'd crossed a line tonight. Admitted attraction to a dangerous man in a dangerous situation. And from the look in his eyes before he'd pushed me away, he felt it too. I just had no idea what we were going to do about it. The next morning, I woke to voices outside my door. Angry voices. Can't stay here indefinitely. A male voice I didn't recognize was saying, It's been a week, Dante. The men are talking. Let them talk. Dante's voice was cold. They're saying you're going soft. That you're keeping a woman here, spending the family's resources on her protection. I don't answer to them. Or to you. I'm your consigliere. It's my job to tell you when you're making a mistake. Then do your job, Marco, and I'll do mine. At least let me talk to her. Figure out what she knows, if she's a threat. She's not a threat. Dante's voice dropped to something lethal. She's under my protection. That's all you need to know. Boss, please, we're done here. Get out. Silence. Then footsteps retreating down the hallway. I waited a few minutes before opening my door, stepping out into the living room. Dante stood by the windows again, his hands braced on the glass, his shoulders tense. I heard, I said quietly. He didn't turn. Then you know my men think I'm making a mistake. Are you? Probably. He finally turned to face me. He looked tired, more tired than I'd seen him. Keeping you here is drawing attention. Making me look weak to my enemies. Creating problems I don't need. Then let me go. The words hurt to say, but I forced them out. I'll take my chances. You've done enough. No, the word was absolute. I'm not sending you back to your apartment to be killed because my men are impatient. So what do? He crossed the room, stopping a few feet away. We wait. The Russos are making moves. Anthony's been tracking them. Once we know what they're planning, we can eliminate the threat permanently. Eliminate? I repeated. You mean kill? Yes. No apology, no softening. That's what we do, Sarah. We eliminate threats. And if I'm the threat? I challenged. If keeping me here is putting you in danger? Then I'll handle it. He moved closer, his hand lifting to cut my face. You're not a threat. You're... What? I asked when he didn't continue. What am I to you, Dante? His thumb stroked my cheek, his eyes searching mine. I don't know, he admitted. That's what terrifies me. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the screen. I have to go, he said, already moving toward the door. Anthony will be here in 5 minutes. Don't leave the penthouse. Don't answer the door for anyone except Valentina or my men. What's happening? The Russos just hit one of our warehouses. His voice was cold, controlled fury. They're escalating. Which means I need to send a message. Dante, I'll be back tonight, he said from the doorway. Stay safe, Tesoro. Then he was gone, and I was alone in the penthouse with the weight of what he'd said hanging in the air. He was going to kill people, maybe die himself. All because of a war I didn't understand and a world I didn't belong to. But as I stood there in the morning light, I realized something that should have terrified me. I didn't want him to let me go. I wanted to stay. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Dante didn't come back that night. I sat by the windows until dawn, watching the city lights blink out one by one as morning approached, my stomach twisted in knots. Valentina had brought me dinner Audiobook that I barely touched and tried to reassure me that Dante knew what he was doing, that he'd been in worse situations, that he always came back. But her eyes were worried too. At 6:23 a.m., I heard the elevator. I was on my feet before the doors opened, my heart in my throat. Dante stepped out and my relief died instantly. His white shirt was spattered with blood. His knuckles were split and bruised. There was a cut above his left eyebrow, still bleeding sluggishly. He moved like every step hurt, one hand pressed to his ribs. Jesus Christ, I breathed, rushing toward him. You need a hospital? No hospitals. His voice was rough, exhausted. Can't risk it. Then sit down before you fall down. I grabbed his arm, steering him toward the couch. He didn't resist, which scared me more than the blood. Up close, I could see the damage more clearly. Bruises forming along his jaw, his shirt torn at the shoulder. The metallic smell of blood mixing with gunpowder and smoke. What happened? I demanded, my hand shaking as I started unbuttoning his shirt. Who did this to you? The Russos had more men than we expected. He winced as I peeled the fabric away from his skin, revealing a massive bruise spreading across his ribs. We handled it. Handled it, I repeated, my fingers gentle as I examined the damage. Nothing felt broken, but that bruise looked bad. You look like you got hit by a truck. 2 trucks, actually. They rammed our car off the road. He caught my hand as I reached for the cut above his eyebrow. I'm fine, Sarah. I've had worse. That doesn't make this okay. I pulled my hand free and went to the kitchen, returning with a first aid kit Valentina kept under the sink. Hold still. I cleaned the cut on his forehead first, my touch as gentle as I could make it. He watched me the entire time, those amber eyes tracking every movement. You're good at this, he observed. My mom was sick for 2 years. I learned. The memory made my chest tight. I wanted to be a nurse, actually. Before you had to drop out of school to take care of her, Dante finished quietly. I know, of course you do. I moved to his knuckles, cleaning away dry blood to reveal split skin underneath. You know everything about me. Not everything. His good hand lifted, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I don't know why you keep looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm worth worrying about. I paused, meeting his eyes. Because you are. Worth worrying about. I'm a killer, Sarah. I left 3 men dead in that warehouse tonight. Shot 2 of them myself. Beat the 3rd one until he told me where the Russos are planning their next move. His voice was flat, matter of fact. That's who I am, what I do. I know, and I did. I'd seen enough violence in my life growing up in Brooklyn, working the late shift at the diner to understand what he was. But you also protected me, kept me safe. Let me sleep for 11 hours and eat until I was full. That doesn't erase the blood on my hands. No, I agreed, wrapping his knuckles carefully. But it doesn't erase the good either. People aren't just one thing, Dante, not even you. He stared at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. How are you not terrified of me right now? I am, I admitted. A little, but I'm more terrified of what would have happened to you if you hadn't come back. His hand cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheek, and I saw something shift in his expression. Something raw and hungry and dangerous. You shouldn't care if I come back or not. Too late, I whispered, echoing his words from days ago. You became that the moment you brought me here. The air between us changed, charged with the same electricity I'd felt that night by the windows. His eyes dropped to my lips and I saw his control wavering. Sarah, his voice was rough. If I kiss you right now, I won't stop at kissing. Then don't stop, I said, and closed the distance between us. His mouth crashed against mine, all the control he'd been holding on to shattering in an instant. The kiss was desperate, consuming, tasting of whiskey and blood and something darker. His hand tangled in my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss, and I melted into him despite the voice in my head screaming that this was a mistake. I didn't care. His other hand gripped my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt every heart plane of his body against mine. The kiss turned hungrier, more demanding, his tongue tracing the seam of my lips until I opened for him. I'd been kissed before. Had a boyfriend in high school, a few dates in college before I'd had to drop out, but this was different. This was being consumed by fire and wanting to burn. Then he made a sound, half groan, half growl, and suddenly I was being lifted, his hands gripping my thighs as he stood with me wrapped around his waist. My back hit the wall and he pressed against me, his hips pinning me in place. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my mouth, his breathing ragged. "Tell me this is a mistake." "It probably is," I gasped as his lips moved to my neck, finding the sensitive spot below my ear. "But I don't care." His teeth grazed my skin and I arched against him, my hands fisting in his hair. Every nerve ending was on fire, every rational thought drowned out by want. Then he stopped. Just stopped, his forehead pressed against my shoulder, his whole body trembling with the effort of holding back. "We can't," he said, his voice wrecked. "Not like this." "Not when I'm covered in blood and you're vulnerable and—" "I'm not vulnerable," I protested, but even I could hear how breathless I sounded. "Yes, you are." He carefully set me back on my feet but didn't move away. "You're here because I forced you to be. Because you had no choice." "I won't take advantage of that." "What if I'm taking advantage of you?" I challenged, my hands still clutching his shoulders. "What if I want this?" "You don't know what you want." His hand cupped my face again, gentle despite the violence still clinging to him. 3 weeks ago, you were a waitress with a normal life. Now you're living with a mob boss who just killed 3 men. You're not thinking clearly. Stop telling me what I'm thinking," I snapped, pulling away from him. "Stop making decisions for me." "Someone has to," he shot back. "Before you do something you'll regret." "How do you know I'll regret it?" "Because everyone who gets close to me ends up hurt or dead." The words were harsh, brutal in their honesty. My mother was killed when I was 10, car bomb meant for my father. My first girlfriend was kidnapped and tortured by the Russos when I was 22. I found her body in pieces. His voice didn't waver, but I saw the pain in his eyes. My father died in my arms after being shot 17 times. Anyone who loves me, Sarah? They pay the price. The air left my lungs. Dante. "So no," he continued, stepping back. "We're not doing this. I'm not putting you in more danger than you're already in. I'm not watching another person I care about get destroyed because of who I am. You care about me," I said softly, focusing on those words instead of the horror of everything else. "Of course I care about you." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating off him. "You think I keep every person who helps me in my penthouse for a month? You think I lose sleep worrying about whether they're safe? You think He cut himself off. "You what?" "I think about you constantly," he admitted, his voice rough. "Wonder what you're doing when I'm in meetings. Imagine what it would be like to wake up next to you. Picture a life where I'm not a killer and you're not in danger and we could actually—" He shook his head. "But that's not reality. Reality is that I have blood on my hands and enemies who would hurt you to hurt me. So what do?" I asked, my chest aching. "We finish this." He moved toward his bedroom. "I find out what the Russos are planning. I eliminate the threat. And then you go back to your life and forget about me. What if I don't want to forget about you?" He paused in the doorway, his back to me. "Then you're braver than I thought. And more foolish." He disappeared into his room, and I stood there in the living room, my lips still tingling from his kiss, my body still humming with want, and my heart breaking for a man who convinced himself he didn't deserve to be loved. Valentina found me 20 minutes later, still standing in the same spot. "Kara," she said gently, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Come, let me make you breakfast." He kissed me, I said numbly. Then told me everyone he cares about ends up dead. His mother, Isabella, his father. Valentina led me to the kitchen, settling me on a stool, all taken from him violently. "It's made him believe he's cursed." "Is he?" "No," she said firmly. "He's just a man trying to survive in a violent world. A man who's forgotten that living means more than just surviving." She started making espresso, the familiar ritual grounding me. When Dante was a boy, before his mother died, he was different, gentle, kind. He loved books and music and helping in the kitchen. She smiled at the memory. His father tried to beat it out of him, said softness was weakness. But I saw glimpses of that boy even after Elena died. What changed him? Time, responsibility, loss. She set an espresso in front of me. When his father died and he became boss at 25, he had to become what the family needed. Hard, unforgiving, feared. There was no room for the gentle boy who loved poetry. But he's still in there, I said, thinking of the way Dante had touched my face, the gentleness in his hands despite the violence. Isn't he? With you? Yes. Valentina's eyes were knowing. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, Kara. Like you're something precious he's afraid to touch. He thinks he'll get me killed. He might, she said honestly. This life, it's dangerous. Being close to Dante means being a target. But it also means having the most powerful man in New York dedicated to keeping you safe. I don't want to be kept safe, I said, surprising myself. I want to be treated like an equal. Like someone who can make her own choices about risk. Then tell him that. She squeezed my hand. But understand Dante's been making life and death decisions since he was a child. Asking him to let you make your own choices about danger? That's asking him to go against every instinct he has. I sipped my espresso, letting the bitter warmth ground me. What was his mother like? Valentina's expression softened. Elena was beautiful, inside and out. She was the daughter of a rival family, and her marriage to Dante's father was supposed to unite the families. Instead, it started a war. She poured her own espresso. The Russos didn't want the families united. They bombed her car. Dante was in the back seat. He survived. She didn't. Jesus, I whispered. He saw it happen? He was 10 years old, covered in his mother's blood, screaming for her to wake up. Valentina's eyes were wet. His father pulled him from the wreckage, and the first thing he said wasn't, "Thank God you're alive." It was, "Stop crying." Salvatores don't cry. My heart broke for the boy Dante had been. The boy who'd lost his mother and been told his grief was weakness. After that, Valentina continued, Alessandro, Dante's father, raised him to be a weapon. Taught him to fight, to kill, to see emotion as a liability. By the time Dante was 15, he killed his first man. By 20, he was leading raids. By 25, he was boss. And the girlfriend? Isabella? Valentina's face went hard. She was a civilian, a teacher. Dante met her at a charity event and fell hard. Kept her separate from the business, tried to give her a normal life, but the Russos found out. They took her, tortured her for information Dante had never told her, then sent her back to him in pieces. Her voice dropped. That was 8 years ago. He hasn't let anyone close since. Until me, I said quietly. Until you. She met my eyes. You saved his life without knowing who he was, without wanting anything in return. That kind of purity, it's irresistible to a man who lives in darkness. I'm not pure, I protested. I'm just good, she finished. In a world where Dante is surrounded by violence and corruption and people who only care about his power, you're good, real, that's what terrifies him. Before I could respond, Anthony appeared in the doorway. His expression was grim. Valentina. I need to speak with Miss Mitchell. My stomach dropped. What's wrong? The Russos know you're here, he said bluntly. They sent a message this morning. They want to trade you for the territory Dante took last night. The room tilted. They want me? They want leverage. Anthony moved closer, his voice gentler. Dante's not going to give you up. But I need you to understand they're going to try to take you. We need to increase security, limit your movements. I already can't leave the penthouse, I pointed out. Now you can't leave this floor, he corrected. And we're adding more guards. Rotating shifts. Background checks on everyone who enters the building, including delivery people and maintenance. This is insane, I breathed. All this because I knocked a knife out of someone's hand? All this because you mattered to Dante, Anthony said. And everyone knows it now. Where is he? Meeting with the other families. Trying to form an alliance against the Russos. Anthony's jaw tightened. This is escalating faster than we anticipated. The Russos are desperate. That makes them dangerous. Let me talk to them, I said suddenly. Let me, absolutely not, Valentina and Anthony said in unison. But if I could explain that I'm not important to Dante, that I'm just, you are important to him, Anthony interrupted. Which means you're valuable to his enemies. The Russos won't negotiate with you, Miss Mitchell. They'll use you to destroy him. The weight of that settled over me like a shroud. I'd become a weapon in a war one didn't understand. When will Dante be back? I asked quietly. Late tonight. He's meeting with the Castellanos, the De Lucas, and the Morettis, trying to convince them that a united front is the only way to stop the Russos from taking over. Anthony hesitated. He also asked me to give you this. He handed me an envelope. Heavy paper, my name written in strong, angular handwriting on the front. What is it? Read it, Anthony said, and left the kitchen with Valentina, giving me privacy. My hand shook as I opened the envelope, pulling out a single sheet of paper. Sarah, by now Anthony has told you about the Russos' message. I want you to understand that I will never let them take you. Whatever they threaten, whatever they promise, you are under my protection, and that protection is absolute. But I also need you to understand the danger you're in by being here, by being connected to me. I've asked Anthony to arrange safe passage for you out of the city if you want it. A new identity, money to start over somewhere far from New York and this life. It would break something in me to watch you go, but it would destroy me to see you hurt because of me. The choice is yours. It always should have been. Stay or go, Tesoro. But know that if you stay, I can't promise to keep my distance anymore. I can't promise to be strong enough to resist what I feel when I look at you. Choose wisely. I read the letter 3 times, my vision blurring with tears I refused to shed. He was giving me a choice. A real one this time. Leave and be safe, or stay and risk everything. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to take the out, to run as far and as fast as I could from this dangerous, beautiful, broken man. But my heart, my stupid, reckless heart, already knew the answer. I found Anthony in the living room, standing guard by the elevator. I need to talk to Dante, I said. He's in a meeting, Miss Mitchell. I can give him a message. No, I squared my shoulders. I need to talk to him in person. Now, where is he? Anthony studied me for a long moment. You're choosing to stay. I'm choosing to tell myself that he doesn't get to make decisions for me anymore. I lifted my chin. Where is he? A slow smile crossed Anthony's face. The Castellano estate in Brooklyn. But Miss Mitchell, you can't just walk into a meeting of the 5 families. Watch me. He laughed, genuine and surprised. Boss is going to lose his mind. Good, I said. It's about time someone shook him up. 20 minutes later, I was in the back of an SUV with Anthony and 3 other guards headed toward Brooklyn. I'd changed into one of the designer outfits from my closet black pants and a silk blouse that made me look far more confident than I felt. Just so you know, Anthony said as we crossed the bridge, walking into a family meeting uninvited is either going to be the bravest thing anyone's ever done, or the stupidest. Probably both, I admitted. But I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being treated like a fragile thing that needs protecting. Dante's not going to see it that way. Then Dante needs to adjust his expectations. The Castellano estate was a massive brownstone in Park Slope, the kind of house that screamed old money and older power. Guards flanked the entrance and more patrolled the perimeter. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a show of force. Anthony led me through a side entrance, past more guards who eyed me with curiosity and suspicion. We stopped outside a set of double doors, and I could hear raised voices from inside. Asking us to go to war for a woman? A male voice, angry and dismissive. The Russos have money, Dante, territory. What does she have? She has my protection. Dante's voice cut through, cold and final. That should be enough. It's not, another voice said. We need a reason to risk our men against the Russos. One girl isn't. I pushed through the doors before Anthony could stop me. The room fell silent. 8 men sat around a massive table, all in expensive suits, all radiating power and danger. And at the head of the table, standing with his hands braced on the dark wood, was Dante, his eyes widening when he saw me. Sarah, I'm the reason, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. You want to know why it's worth going to war? I'm standing right here. Miss Mitchell, one of the older men said, his tone condescending. This is family business. I should what? I challenged, moving further into the room. Hide while you decide my fate? Let you debate whether my life is worth the trouble. I looked at each of them in turn. The Russos didn't try to kill a random mob boss. They tried to kill Dante Salvatore, and they failed because I stepped in. Now they want me dead to finish what they started. All the more reason to keep you hidden, another man said. Not parade you in front of, I'm not hiding anymore. I turned to Dante, ignoring everyone else. And I'm not running. You gave me a choice, and I'm making it. I'm staying. Dante's expression was unreadable. Sarah, this isn't the place. This is exactly the place, I interrupted. Because these men need to understand that I'm not some damsel who needs rescuing. I'm someone who made a choice to save your life. Who's making a choice now to stand by you? And if that's not worth protecting, then what is? The silence in the room was deafening. Then one of the men younger than the others with kind eyes started laughing. Madonna, Dante, where did you find her? The subway, Dante said dryly, his eyes never leaving mine. She saved my life with a canvas bag, and now she walks into a 5 families meeting like she owns the place. The young man continued, his grin widening. I like her. Your opinion is noted, Marco, the oldest man at the table said. He had silver hair and a face like carved marble. But this doesn't change the facts. The Russos are offering peace in exchange for the girl. We'd be fools not to consider it. Then I'm a fool, Dante said flatly. Because there's no scenario where I hand Sarah over to people who will torture and kill her. Even if it means war? Silverhair challenged. Especially if it means war. Dante moved around the table toward me. The Russos have been pushing boundaries for years. Taking territory, killing our men, disrespecting our agreements. This isn't about Sarah, she's just their latest excuse. They want to rule New York, and they'll use any leverage they can get. So we're supposed to protect your girlfriend? Another man sneered. Risk our families for your affair? The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Watch your mouth, Carmen, Dante said softly, and there was death in his voice. Before I forget, we're allies. Gentlemen, Anthony said from the doorway, his voice calm but firm. Perhaps we should focus on the actual threat. The Russos hit 3 of our warehouses last night. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in dominance. Anthony's right, the young man Marco said. This is bigger than one woman. The Russos are testing us. If we show weakness now, if we negotiate with terrorists, we'll never stop negotiating. Silverhair's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting, Marco? I'm suggesting we end this. Marco stood, his hands flat on the table. The Russos want war? We give them war, united. All 5 families working together to eliminate the threat once and for all. You're talking about a bloodbath, Carmine protested. I'm talking about survival, Marco countered. The Russos won't stop with the Salvatores. They'll come for each of us, one by one, until they control everything. Better to fight together now than fall separately later. The men looked at each other, a silent conversation happening that I couldn't follow. Finally, Silverhair spoke. If we do this, if we go to war, it needs to be decisive, complete. We can't leave the Russos with enough strength to retaliate. Agreed, Dante said. And the girl? Silverhair's eyes found mine. She stays protected. All 5 families guarantee her safety. The Russos touch her, they answer to all of us. Agreed, the others echoed. Just like that, I become the catalyst for a mob war. Danny's hand found the small of my back, warm and possessive. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll coordinate with each of you on. Not so fast, Carmine interrupted. If we're risking our men for her, I want to know what makes her so special. Why you're willing to start a war for some waitress you've known for 2 weeks. Dante's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, I answered. Because I see him, I said simply, not the boss. Not the killer, not the legacy or the power or the fear. I see the man underneath all of that. And apparently that's rare enough to be worth protecting. Carmine stared at me, his expression shifting through surprise to something that might have been respect. You got balls, sweetheart. I'll give you that. Thank you, I said dryly. I think. Silverhair stood, signaling the end of the meeting. We'll coordinate our resources. Dante, you have point on strategy. Marco, you handle logistics. Carmen, I want eyes on every Russo operation in the city. The men filed out, some nodding to me, others ignoring me completely. When the room was empty except for Dante, Anthony, and me, the tension finally broke. That was the stupidest, bravest, most reckless thing I've ever seen, Dante said, and I couldn't tell if he was angry or impressed. You gave me a choice, I reminded him. I made it. I didn't mean for you to storm into a 5 families meeting and declare yourself publicly, he growled, pulling me closer. Do you have any idea what you just did? I took control of my own life, I shot back. Something you've been trying to stop me from doing since the moment we met. I've been trying to keep you alive, and I've been trying to tell you I'm not a child who needs protecting from every decision. I poked his chest. You don't get to give me choices and then be angry when I make them. I'm not angry you made a choice, he said, his voice dropping. I'm terrified of what it means. What does it mean? His hand cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone. It means you're all in now, no backing out. No safe distance. You just tied yourself to me in front of the most powerful men in New York. Good, I said. Because I'm tired of pretending I don't care what happens to you. Sarah. His forehead touched mine. You don't understand what you're signing up for. Then explain it to me. No more decisions made for me. No more protecting me from the truth. If we're doing this, we're doing it as equals. Equals, he repeated like the word was foreign. Tesoro, I'm the head of a crime family. You're a waitress from Brooklyn. We're not. I'm a woman who saved your life and is choosing to stay by your side despite every rational reason to run, I interrupted. That makes us equals where it counts. He stared at me for a long moment, his amber eyes searching mine. Then he kissed me. Not like before, desperate and consuming. This was different. Slower, deliberate, like he was memorizing the taste of me, the feel of me. The moment we stopped pretending this wasn't inevitable, when he pulled back, his breathing was ragged. If we do this, if we're really doing this, you need to understand the rules. I'm listening. You don't go anywhere without guards. You don't trust anyone outside the family. You learn to shoot, to fight, to protect yourself when I can't be there. His hands framed my face. And you tell me immediately if anyone threatens you, approaches you, even looks at you wrong. Okay, I agreed. My turn. You don't make decisions about my life without consulting me. You don't shut me out when things get dangerous. And you stop treating me like I'm made of glass. You are compared to the world I live in, he said softly. Then I'll get stronger. I covered his hands with mine, but I won't run. And I won't let you push me away because you're scared of what might happen. I'm not scared, he started, then stopped. That's a lie. I'm terrified. Keeping you safe is all I think about. Then let me help, I said. Stop carrying everything alone. I've been alone for 8 years, he admitted. I don't know how to not be. We'll figure it out together. I kissed him softly. That's what equals do. He pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me like I was something precious. This is going to end badly. Maybe I agreed. Or maybe it's the beginning of something good. I don't do good, Tesoro. I do survival. Then maybe it's time to learn the difference. Anthony cleared his throat from the doorway. Boss, we should get Miss Mitchell back to the penthouse. The other families are leaving, and I don't trust Carmine not to say something he shouldn't. Dante released me reluctantly. Take her home, full security detail. I can take myself, I started. Not anymore, Dante interrupted gently. You're officially part of this family now. That means you're a target. No more walking home alone at 3 a.m. I haven't worked at the diner in 2 weeks, I pointed out. And you won't be going back, he said. I'll compensate you, but that part of your life is over. You can't just, yes, I can. His voice was firm. That's what being in this family means, Sarah. Your old life, it's done. You're under our protection now, which means you play by our rules. I wanted to argue. To fight for my independence, my autonomy, my right to make my own choices. But looking into his eyes, I understood. This wasn't about control. It was about survival. And if I was really all in, I had to accept what that meant. Fine, I said. But I want to learn to protect myself. Shooting, fighting, whatever it takes. I won't just sit in the penthouse waiting to be rescued. A slow smile crossed his face. Deal. Anthony starts training me tomorrow. Tomorrow? I squeaked. No time like the present, Miss Mitchell, Anthony said with a grin. Especially since you just painted a target on your back. Fantastic, I muttered. Dante kissed my forehead. I have business to finish here. I'll be home late. Don't wait up. Be careful, I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. His expression softened. Always am, Tesoro. The next 3 days were a crash course in organized crime survival. Anthony woke me at 6 a.m. each morning, taking me to a private gym in the basement of Dante's building. He taught me to shoot, to fight dirty. to use everyday objects as weapons. My body ached in places I didn't know existed, but I pushed through, determined to prove I could handle this life. Dante was gone most of the time, coordinating the war against the Russos. When he was home, he was exhausted, stressed, sometimes covered in blood that I didn't ask about. But he always found me before bed, checking that I was okay, that I was safe. We didn't talk about the kiss. Didn't address the electricity that crackled between us whenever we were in the same room. It was like we were both waiting for something, permission, maybe, or courage. On the fourth day, Valentina woke me with news that changed everything. "Your apartment was destroyed last night," she said gently, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Fire. The investigators think it was arson." I sat up, my heart racing. Was anyone hurt? "No, thank God. The building was evacuated." Her hand found mine. "But Kara, everything you owned, it's gone." The reality hit me like a physical blow. My mother's photographs, her jewelry, the few mementos I kept from my childhood, all of it destroyed. "The Russos," I said numbly, "most likely. A message that they know where you lived, that they can reach you anywhere." I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt oddly relieved. The last tide of my old life severed. No going back now. "Where's Dante?" I asked. "His study, but Kara, he's in a mood." "Maybe wait." I was already out of bed, pulling on a robe, heading down the hallway. I pushed through the door to his study without knocking. Dante looked up from his desk, his expression dark. "Sarah, they burned my apartment," I said. "I know." He stood, moving around the desk toward me. "I'm sorry." I had men watching the building, but they were careful. "Set the fire remotely. Everything's gone." "My mother's things." "All of it. I'll replace." "You can't replace memories," I interrupted. "But you know what? I don't care. Because those things were keeping me tied to a life that wasn't working. A life where I was broke and alone and going nowhere." He stopped in front of me, his eyes searching mine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe them destroying my apartment was a gift. No more looking back. No more wondering what if." I stepped closer. "I'm here now, completely, and I'm done pretending this is temporary. Sarah, I love you," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. I know you're dangerous and violent and everything I should run from. But I love you anyway." The silence stretched between us, heavy and loaded. Then Dante was kissing me again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. His hands tangled in my hair, his body pressing mine against the door, every careful control he'd maintained shattering. "Say it again." He growled against my mouth. "I love you," I gasped as his lips moved to my neck. "I love you, Dante." "Tesoro," he breathed, and the words sounded like a prayer. My treasure. My reckless, brave, impossible woman. "Say it back," I demanded, my hands fisting in his shirt. "Tell me I'm not alone in this." He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, and what I saw there stole my breath. "I fell in love with you the moment you swung that canvas bag. When you looked at a stranger being attacked and didn't hesitate, didn't calculate, just acted." His thumb traced my lips. "I've been fighting it every day since. Trying to convince myself it was gratitude or obsession or anything else, but it's not." "What is it?" I whispered. "Love," he said simply. "Terrifying, consuming, probably dash going dash to dash get dash us dash both dash killed love." I laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. My world doesn't do romance, Tesoro. It does possession, protection, obsession." His hands framed my face. "I will kill anyone who tries to hurt you. I will burn down cities to keep you safe. I will cross every line, break every rule, violate every code I have. That's what loving you means in my world." "Then show me," I said, and pulled him back down to me. This kiss was different from the others, no desperation, no hesitation. Just certainty. The absolute knowledge that this was right, consequences be damned. He lifted me, and my legs wrapped around his waist as he carried me to the couch. We fell onto it in a tangle of limbs, his weight pressing me into the leather, and I'd never felt more alive. His hands found the tie of my robe, and he paused. "Tell me to stop." "Don't stop," I breathed. "Don't ever stop." The robe fell open, revealing the thin nightgown underneath. His eyes darkened as he took in the sight, his breathing ragged. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, his hands sliding up my sides. So perfect. How did I get this lucky? You got stabbed on the subway, I reminded him, making him laugh. Best worst day of my life, he agreed, and kissed me again. We moved together like we'd done this 1,000 times, like our bodies knew each other even though our minds were still catching up. His hands were everywhere, gentle and demanding, worshipful and possessive. He touched me like I was made of glass and steel simultaneously, precious and unbreakable. When he finally made love to me, it was with an intensity that left me breathless. Every movement deliberate, every touch claiming, every kiss sealing promises neither of us could keep but would try anyway. Afterward, we lay tangled together on the couch, our breathing slowly returning to normal. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. This changes everything, he said quietly. I know. You're mine now. Completely. And I don't share. Good thing I'm not interested in being shared. I turned in his arms to face him. But that goes both ways. You're mine too. A slow smile crossed his face. Possessive, Tesoro? Completely, I agreed. Any woman even looks at you wrong, I'm swinging my canvas bag again. He laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded in a way I'd never heard. I wouldn't expect anything less. His phone buzzed on the desk, shattering the moment. He reached for it, his expression hardening as he read the screen. What is it? I asked, already knowing it was bad. The Russos just took Marco Castellano's daughter, he said flatly, sitting up. They're demanding a trade. Her for you, my blood ran cold. Marco's the one who supported me in the meeting. Yes. Dante was already standing, reaching for a shirt. And now his daughter is paying the price. Then give them what they want, I said, my voice steady despite my terror. Trade me for her. Absolutely not. He turned to face me, his expression fierce. I'm not handing you over to people who will torture and kill you. But an innocent girl will be rescued, he interrupted. We're hitting the Russo compound tonight. Full assault, all 5 families. We get Marco's daughter back and we end this war once and for all. Let me help, I said, standing and wrapping my robe around myself. I can. You can stay here where it's safe, Dante said firmly. This is going to be bloody, Sarah. I won't risk you. You risk yourself, I challenged. Why is that different? Because this is my war. My responsibility, our war, I interrupted. The moment I decided to stay, it became our war. You don't get to shut me out now. I'm not shutting you out. I'm keeping you alive. He crossed the room and gripped my shoulders. Please, Tesoro. Let me do this without worrying about you. I'll always worry about you, I said. That doesn't change whether I'm here or there. At least here you're protected. And at least there I could actually help. You're not trained for this kind of operation, he said, frustration bleeding through. Anthony's been teaching you basics, but this is war, Sarah, real actual war. People are going to die tonight. I know. I met his eyes. And one of them might be you. So forgive me if I want to be there to make sure it isn't. He stared at me for a long moment, his jaw working. You're serious. Completely. You could die. So could you? That's different. It's not, I interrupted. Stop treating me like I'm worth more than you are. We're in this together, remember? Equals. Equals don't mean I'm okay with you getting shot, he growled. And equals don't mean I'm okay with you going into a war zone alone, I shot back. We glared at each other, the tension crackling between us. Finally, Dante exhaled hard. If I let you come, you stay in the car with Anthony. You don't engage. You don't try to help. You just observe and be ready to drive if things go south. Deal? I said immediately. I'm going to regret this, he muttered, pulling me into his arms. You're going to drive me insane, Tesoro. Probably, I agreed, standing on my toes to kiss him. But you love me anyway. God help me, I do. He buried his face in my hair. I really, really do. 6 hours later, I sat in the back of an armored SUV with Anthony, watching through tinted windows as Dante and 20 other men prepared to storm a warehouse in Red Hook, the Russo compound, where Marco's daughter was being held, where, hopefully, this war would finally end. You didn't have to come, Anthony said quietly, checking his gun for the 3rd time. Yes, I did. I watched Dante strap on body armor, his movements efficient and practiced. He needs to know someone's here who cares about him. Not just as boss, but as a person. He has Valentina. The family, it's not the same. I met Anthony's eyes. You know it's not. He nodded slowly. No, it's not. But Miss Mitchell, if things go wrong tonight, if Dante gives the signal, I'm driving away with you. No arguments. That's his order. I'm not leaving him, I said flatly. You won't have a choice. He made me promise. Anthony's expression was apologetic. And I always keep my promises to boss. Before I could respond, Dante appeared at the window. He opened the door, leaning in to cut my face. Last chance to back out, he said. Not happening. He kissed me hard and fast. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you, I interrupted. But if it does, he continued, Anthony has instructions. Money, documents, everything you need to disappear. Promise me you'll use them. Dante, promise me, Sarah. I looked into those amber eyes and saw the fear he was hiding. The absolute terror that tonight might be the last time he saw me. I promise, I lied, because it was what he needed to hear. He knew I was lying, I could see it in his face. But he kissed me anyway, pouring everything he couldn't say into that one moment. Tiamo, he whispered against my lips. More than my life. I love you too, I whispered back. Come back to me. Always, Tesoro. Always. Then he was gone, moving toward the warehouse with his men, and I was left with my heart in my throat and prayers I didn't know how to pray. The assault began at exactly 11 p.m. I watched through the window as Dante's men breached the warehouse from 3 different entry points, heard the crack of gunfire, saw muzzle flashes in the darkness, counted seconds that felt like hours. How long? I asked Anthony, my voice shaking. Could be minutes. Could be longer. His hand was on the ignition, ready to drive at a moment's notice. Depends on how many Russos are inside. More gunfire, shouting. Then an explosion that made the SUV shake. Jesus, I breathed. Flashbang, Anthony said. Standard breach tactics. The radio on the dashboard crackled to life. We have the package. I repeat, we have the package. Marcus's daughter is secure. Relief flooded through me. Thank God. But we're taking heavy fire, the voice continued. Russos have more men than expected. We need extraction on the north side. The transmission cut off with a burst of static. What happened? I demanded. Anthony, what happened? I don't know. His jaw was tight. That could be interference or another explosion, this one bigger. The whole warehouse seemed to shudder, and then flames were licking up the sides of the building. No, I whispered. No. Stay in the car, Anthony ordered, already opening his door. I didn't hear the rest. I was already out of the vehicle, running toward the burning warehouse, my heart screaming Dante's name. Miss Mitchell. Anthony's shout was drowned out by the roar of flames and gunfire. I didn't care. Didn't think, just ran. The heat hit me 20 feet from the building, searing, suffocating. Smoke filled my lungs. Through the flames, I could see shapes moving, men stumbling out of the inferno. Dante. I screamed. Dante, a hand grabbed my arm, spinning me around. Marco Castellano, his face covered in soot and blood. Get back to the car, he ordered. It's not safe. Where's Dante? I demanded. Is he out? Marco's expression told me everything I needed to know. No, I breathed. No, he's not still in there. The explosion collapsed part of the structure, Marco said, his voice rough. Dante and 3 others were on the 2nd floor when it happened. We don't know. I tore my arm from his grip and ran toward the building. Sarah, nitrogen monoxide. Multiple voices shouting, but I was already at the entrance, the heat scorching my skin, smoke blinding me. I couldn't leave him. Wouldn't leave him. The warehouse interior was hell flames everywhere, smoke so thick I could barely see 3 feet ahead. I pulled my shirt up over my nose and mouth, trying to filter the air. Dante, I screamed again. Where are you? A crash to my left. Part of the ceiling collapsing in a shower of sparks. I stumbled away from it, my eyes streaming, my lungs burning. This was insane, suicidal. I was going to die in here. But if Dante was dying too, at least we'd die together. Sarah? His voice weak and coming from somewhere above me. What the fuck are you doing here? Saving your ass, I shouted back. Where are you? 2nd floor, stairwell collapsed. A coffin fit cut him off. I found the remains of a staircase, half of it destroyed by the explosion. Using debris as handholds, I climbed, ignoring the way the metal burned my palms, focusing only on reaching him. "Keep talking," I yelled, "so I can find you." "You shouldn't be here," he rasped. "Promise dude stay in the car. When have I ever done what I'm supposed to?" I pulled myself up another level, and there he was. Dante sat slumped against a wall, his body armor cracked, blood running down the side of his face from a gash above his temple. His left leg was trapped under a fallen beam, and from the angle I knew it was broken. "Tesoro," he breathed when he saw me. "You beautiful, reckless, insane woman. Can you move the beam?" I asked, already assessing the situation. "Tried. It's too heavy." He reached for me with his free hand. "You need to go. Get out before the whole building comes down." "Not without you." I gripped the beam, trying to lift it. It didn't budge. "Sarah, please, help." I screamed toward the hole in the floor. "Someone help you." Footsteps pounding up what remained of the stairs. Anthony appeared, followed by 2 of Dante's men. "Jesus Christ, boss," Anthony breathed. "We thought you were dead." "Not yet," Dante managed. "Get her out of here. We're getting you both out," Anthony said and gestured to the other men. On 3, we lift the beam. It took all 4 of us, but we managed to shift the beam enough for Dante to pull his leg free. He bit back a scream, his face going white with pain. "Can you walk?" I asked. "Can I, Tesoro? My leg is broken in at least 2 places." "Can you walk?" I repeated, "with help." He slung an arm around Anthony's shoulders. "Let's move before this place becomes our tomb." Getting down was harder than getting up. The building was actively collapsing now, pieces of ceiling and wall falling around us. We moved as fast as Dante could manage, which wasn't fast enough. A beam crashed down behind us, blocking our escape route. "Alternate exit," Anthony said, steering us toward a side door. This way, we burst out into the night air, and I'd never been so grateful to breathe in my life. Dante collapsed as soon as we were clear, his breathing labored. "Medic!" Anthony shouted. "We need a medic!" Men swarmed around us. Someone was cutting away Dante's pant leg, exposing the broken bone. Someone else was checking his head wound. But Dante's eyes were on me. "You came into a burning building for me," he said, like he still couldn't believe it. "Of course I did, you idiot." I gripped his hand. "I love you. What did you think I'd do?" "Listen to instructions. Stay safe." He tried to smile. "Clearly I don't know you at all." "Clearly," I agreed. The medic was splinting his leg, and I could see how much it hurt him, even though he tried to hide it. "The girl?" Dante asked Anthony. "Marco's daughter?" "Safe, already on her way home to her father." Anthony's expression was grim. "But we lost 4 men. And Carmine took a bullet to the shoulder." "The Russos?" "Dead, all of them." "Building took out anyone we didn't shoot." Anthony paused. "It's over, boss." "The war is over." Dante closed his eyes, relief washing over his features. "Good, that's good." An ambulance arrived, and they loaded Dante onto a stretcher. I tried to go with him, but Anthony stopped me. "Different car," he said quietly. "Can't risk both of you in one vehicle." "If there are still Russo loyalists out there, I understand." I kissed Dante's forehead. "I'll meet you at the hospital." "Promise?" His hand caught mine, squeezing weakly. "Promise, real promise this time." He smiled. I know the difference now. They loaded him into the ambulance, and I watched it drive away, my heart in my throat. "You saved his life," Marco said, appearing beside me. His daughter, a beautiful girl of about 20, stood next to him, wrapped in a blanket and crying. "Again, I just did what had to be done. You ran into a burning building with no protective gear and no training." Marco shook his head. "That's not bravery, Miss Mitchell." "That's love. Same thing sometimes," I said quietly. "Thank you," the girl said, her voice shaking. "For convincing them to come for me. For being the reason they cared enough to risk war." "You're welcome," I said, though I felt like a fraud. I hadn't convinced anyone of anything. I just loved a dangerous man and made dangerous choices because of it. But looking at her alive and safe in her father's arms, maybe that was enough. Dante spent 3 days in the hospital. Broken leg, concussion, second-degree burns on his arms, and bruised ribs. The doctors wanted to keep him longer, but on the 4th day, he discharged himself against medical advice. I hate hospitals, he grumbled as I helped him into the wheelchair the nurses insisted on. They smell like death and antiseptic. They smell like medicine and healing, I corrected. Stop being a baby. I'm not being a baby. I'm being a boss who needs to get back to work. You're being a stubborn man who won't admit he needs rest. I pushed the wheelchair toward the elevator, ignoring his protests. You're going home, you're going to bed, and you're going to let Valentina feed you soup until you're better. Sounds terrible, he said, but I heard the smile in his voice. It's going to be awful, I agreed. You'll hate every minute. Will you be there? I leaned down and kissed the top of his head. Every single minute. Then maybe it won't be so bad. The penthouse had been transformed in our absence. Flowers everywhere from the families, from business associates, from people I didn't know. Cards and gifts piled on every surface. Valentina had cooked enough food to feed an army. Madonna, Dante breathed as I helped him onto the couch. It's like someone died. Someone almost did, Valentina said sharply, appearing from the kitchen with tears in her eyes. Don't you ever scare me like that again. I'll try not to, Dante said gently. But you know I can't promise that. Then I'll have to rely on Sarah to keep you alive, Valentina said, smiling at me. She's done a pretty good job so far. That she has, Dante agreed, pulling me down onto the couch beside him. My personal guardian angel with a canvas bag and questionable decision-making skills, I added. Those too, he kissed my temple. Have I thanked you yet for saving my life? Again? About 50 times in the hospital. Not nearly enough. His hand found mine, lacing our fingers together. TMO, tesoro. More than I have words for. I love you too, I said. Even when you're being stubborn about staying in the hospital. Especially when I'm being stubborn, he corrected. It's part of my charm. If you say so. Over the next week, the reality of our new life began to sink in. Dante was boss, which meant constant meetings, phone calls, decisions about territory and money and violence I tried not to think too hard about. But he was also mine, which meant late nights talking about everything and nothing, mornings waking up in his arms, quiet moments of peace in the chaos. I started training more seriously with Anthony, learning not just to defend myself but to understand the world I was now part of, the families, the territories, the codes and rules that governed organized crime. It should have been terrifying. Instead, I felt more alive than I had in years. You're good at this, Anthony said one afternoon after I'd successfully disarmed him 3 times in a row. The strategy, the thinking. You have a tactical mind. I was good at chess in high school, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. Same principles. Boss say you've been sitting in on some of the family meetings. He asked if I wanted to learn the business. I shrugged. Figured if I'm going to be part of this family, I should understand how it works. And what do you think? Now that you've seen behind the curtain? I considered the question carefully. I think it's more complicated than I expected. More rules, more honor, more care for the community than I would have thought. But still violent. I agreed. I'm not naive enough to think otherwise. Does that bother you? I thought about the men who tried to kill Dante. The ones who kidnapped Marco's daughter. The ones who burned my apartment. The violence against people who deserve it. No, I met Anthony's eyes. The violence against innocence? Yes, but Dante doesn't do that. His family doesn't do that. We try not to, Anthony said carefully. But sometimes collateral damage is unacceptable, I finished. And that's something I'm working on with Dante, setting boundaries. Making sure the family's rules include protecting civilians, not just family members. You're trying to reform the mob, Anthony said, and I couldn't tell if he was impressed or horrified. I'm trying to make the man I love proud of the empire he runs, I corrected. There's a difference. Boss would burn the world for you, Anthony said quietly. You know that, right? I do. And I did. I saw it in the way Dante looked at me, touched me, protected me. But I'd rather he build something than burn it. Something that lasts beyond violence and fear. You think that's possible in this world? I think if anyone can do it, Dante can, I smiled. With the right motivation. And you're that motivation. I'm trying to be. Anthony studied me for a long moment. You're going to change everything, aren't you? I hope so, I said honestly. Because the alternative is watching the man I love destroy himself trying to maintain an empire built on blood. He's lucky to have you. We're lucky to have each other, I corrected. Now show me that disarming technique again. I want to be able to do it in under 3 seconds. 2 months after the fire, Dante proposed. We were on the penthouse balcony watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and pink. He'd been quiet all evening, distracted in a way that made me nervous. What's wrong? I finally asked, setting down my wine glass. You've been weird all day. Not wrong. Just thinking. He turned to face me and I saw nerves in those amber eyes. Actual nerves. On a man who faced down mobsters without flinching. About what? Instead of answering, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. Sarah Mitchell, he said, opening the box to reveal the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen, a princess-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones, set in platinum. You saved my life with a canvas bag on the subway. You argued with me in front of the 5 families. You ran into a burning building to pull me out. You've changed everything about my life in the best possible way. Dante? Let me finish, he interrupted gently. I know I'm not an easy man. I know my world is dangerous and violent and nothing like what you deserve. But I also know that I love you more than I've ever loved anything. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. He dropped to one knee and I realized I was crying. Will you marry me, Tesoro? Will you be my wife, my partner, my equal in all things? Yes, I breathed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Dante didn't do anything by half measures. Then he was standing, pulling me into his arms, kissing me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. I love you, I said against his mouth. So much it scares me sometimes. Good, he murmured. We can be scared together. The engagement party was held at the Castellano estate 2 weeks later. All 5 families attended, along with what felt like half of New York's underground. I wore a dress that cost more than my old car and the engagement ring that sparkled under the chandeliers. You look beautiful, Marco said, kissing both my cheeks in greeting. Dante's a lucky man. I'm pretty lucky too, I admitted, watching Dante work the room. He moved through the crowd with ease, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, every inch the powerful boss he was. But every few minutes his eyes found mine across the room, and I saw the real Dante, the man who loved me. The man who'd changed his entire world because I asked him to. He's different now, Marco continued, following my gaze, since you. More careful with civilian casualties. More thoughtful about the family's impact on the community. I asked him to be, I said simply. And he listened. That's unprecedented. Marco's expression turned serious. You have real power in this family, Sarah. Use it wisely. I plan to. The party continued late into the night, dancing, drinking, toasting to our future. But my favorite moment came at the end, when everyone had left and Dante and I stood alone in the Castellano's garden. Happy? He asked, pulling me close. Deliriously, I said, resting my head on his chest. Though I never imagined my life would turn out like this. Married to a mob boss? In love with a man who sees me as an equal, who listens when I speak, who's building an empire we can both be proud of. I'm trying, he said quietly. Every day I'm trying to be the man you think I am. You already are, I assured him. You just needed someone to show you. We stood there in the darkness, the city lights twinkling around us, and I thought about the girl I'd been 2 months ago. Broke, tired, going nowhere, and the woman I was now. Engaged to the most powerful man in New York, helping to reshape a criminal empire from the inside, more alive and purposeful than I'd ever been. It had started with a knife and a canvas bag on the subway. It was ending with a ring and a promise of forever. And somehow, impossibly, that felt exactly right. The wedding was planned for 6 months later, enough time to navigate the complex politics of uniting families, negotiating alliances, and making sure every detail was perfect. But 3 months before the wedding, everything changed again. I woke up one morning feeling nauseous, then the next morning. And the next, Valentina took one look at me and handed me a pregnancy test. No, I said, staring at the little stick. I can't be, we've been careful, not careful enough apparently, she said with a knowing smile. Take the test, Kara. 2 lines, positive. I was pregnant with the heir to the Salvatore Empire. Dante's reaction when I told him was everything I could have hoped for. Shock, followed by joy so pure it made my eyes sting, followed by immediate protectiveness that made me laugh. "You're wrapping me in bubble wrap, aren't you?" I said as he insisted I sit down immediately. "If I thought it would keep you safe, yes." His hand splayed across my still flat stomach, wonder in his eyes. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby," I confirmed. "Are you happy?" "Happy doesn't begin to cover it, Tesoro." He pulled me into his arms, careful and gentle. Terrified, yes. Worried about how to keep both of you safe in this world, absolutely. But happy? Beyond measure. "We'll figure it out," I promised. Together, he agreed. The pregnancy changed things. Dante became even more protective, if that was possible. Security was doubled. My training with Anthony was modified for safety. The family rallied around us, offering advice and support and congratulations. And slowly I watched Dante transform even further. He started making plans for the future, not just 6 months out, but years, decades. He talked about teaching our child right from wrong, about building a legacy that was about more than violence and power. "I want them to be proud of me," he said one night, his hand on my growing belly. "Not afraid." "Not ashamed. Proud. Then give them something to be proud of," I said. "Keep building what you've started. The community programs, the legitimate businesses, the protection without the violence. I'm trying," he said. "But it's slow. The families are traditional. Change doesn't come easy, but it comes," I reminded him. "You've already done more in 3 months than most bosses do in years." "Because of you. Because of us," I corrected. "Partners, remember?" "Partners," he agreed and kissed me softly. 6 months into my pregnancy, we finally got married. A private ceremony at the penthouse with just the immediate family only. Valentina cried. Anthony smiled. Marco brought his daughter, who'd become a good friend over the months. And Dante looked at me like I was the answer to every question he'd never known to ask. "I, Dante Salvatore, take you, Sarah Mitchell, to be my wife," he said, his voice steady and sure. "To love and protect, to honor and cherish, to stand beside as an equal in all things, for as long as we both shall live. I, Sarah Mitchell, take you, Dante Salvatore, to be my husband," I echoed. "To love and challenge, to support and ground, to build a future with that we can both be proud of for as long as we both shall live." The officiant pronounced us married, and Dante kissed me like we were the only 2 people in the world, Mrs. Salvatore. It should have felt strange. Instead, it felt exactly right. Our daughter was born on a snowy January evening, 3 months after the wedding. Dante held my hand through the entire labor, whispering encouragement in Italian, promising me the world if I could just keep breathing. And when they placed our baby girl in my arms, with her dark hair and amber eyes that matched her father's, I watched the last piece of Dante's armor fall away. "She's perfect," he breathed, touching her tiny hand with one finger. "Look at her, Tesoro." "We made that." "We did," I agreed, exhausted and exhilarated and more in love than I'd ever been. "What should we name her?" "Elena," he said without hesitation, after my mother. "If that's okay with you." "Elena Salvatore." I tested the name. "It's beautiful. Like her mother," Dante said, kissing my forehead. "Like both her mothers. Elena grew up surrounded by love and protection, a princess of the Salvatore Empire. But more than that, she grew up knowing her father was trying to be better, that he was building something worth inheriting. By the time Elena was 5, Dante had successfully transitioned half of the family's operations to legitimate businesses. The violence was down 70%. The community programs were thriving. Other families were starting to follow the Salvatore example. "You did this," Dante said one night as we watched Elena sleep, her small hand clutching her favorite stuffed animal. "You changed everything." "We did this," I corrected, leaning into his side. "Partners, remember?" "Partners," he agreed. Always. Looking back, I could barely remember the girl I'd been before the subway. The one who was broke and tired and going nowhere. That girl felt like a stranger now. Because she'd swung a canvas bag at a man with a knife, and it had changed everything. It had led me here to a penthouse overlooking the city, to a man who loved me fiercely and completely, to a daughter who represented the future we were building together. To a life I never could have imagined but wouldn't trade for anything. What are you thinking? Dante asked, pulling me closer. That I'd do it all again, I said honestly. Every scary, reckless, dangerous moment. Because it led me to you. Even the burning building? Especially the burning building. I smiled up at him. You're worth running into fire for. You're worth changing my entire world for, he countered. Worth becoming a better man for. You were always a good man, I said. You just needed someone to remind you. I needed you, he corrected. Specifically, stubbornly, and possibly you. Outside the window, the city glittered our kingdom, our responsibility, our future. And inside this room, we had everything that mattered. Love, family, hope. And it had all started with a stranger, a knife, and a canvas bag on the subway. The best worst day of both our lives.